Hello, hello. Welcome everyone to season 1, race 2 of the NNR season. We're here at the Hungaroring on this nice sunny afternoon qualifying session as our drivers are going out on track. And I'm here alongside Giants, our
Hello,
league
everyone.
owner. How are you doing today, Giants?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today, Tom?
I'm doing fantastic up in the booth. It's a nice day, dry weather, which is always good to see. And yeah, should be a very exciting qualifying session.
Yeah, so here we see our Alpha Tauri driver, AMA Jetty. It looks like he's the first one on track. Excited to see what mark he can make. We all know here that he's a very fast driver for AMA, so let's see what he can do in NNR. So we see a lot of drivers actually out on their out laps right now. The only people that are in the pits right now are the Haas of Jimsy and the Racing Point of Estaprada. So here Jetty is about to cross the line. He's coming across the final corner right now, about to start his flying lap. Oh, and he actually goes
Ooh.
very squirrely on the exit of the turn. He might just botch his lap or just give up on his lap here, rather. And he looks like he's pulling to the side, actually. Wonder what happened there. He must have gotten a little bit too excited on the throttle. Here we have Kulex, the Williams driver, coming across the line to start his flying lap. We'll go through a lap with him. He tries to clip the inside apex of turn 1. Gets a little bit squirrely on the exit as it's a low traction zone. Here he comes down to turn 2 now. Very tricky, a double apex turn. Takes it very nice and tight. Coming out of turn 3, you want to get on the power as soon as possible. Carry enough momentum that turn 4, we could see Jetty actually did pull off to the side there, or giving up on his lap, rather. Carry a load of momentum up that uphill left-hander and try to avoid that curb on the inside. Carry a lot of speed up this uphill and slow down the car nice and early for this double chicane right here. And here we have him going around a little bit of a slower section of the track, trying to chain the corners together very nicely. Definitely having a flyer. You could tell that this guy has definitely done a lot of practice on the Hungaroring and is ready to put on a show tonight after a disappointing performance from Williams last week.
I believe we have the Mercedes of Paradox coming to the line to set the first lap of the session. So he comes across and sets a 16.7. We'll see how Kulex responds as he is next. Oh, as actually times tumble down.
Yeah, so we see
Kulex 15.4.
Kulex is setting a 15.4, about 8 tenths faster than P2 of the Collateral, which is 5 tenths from P3 of Morph, and about only 400ths of a second from Paradox. So pretty quick laps from these drivers. Let's look at AJ actually, who's in the last sector right now, trying to finish up his lap. Gummy Panda just set a 17.7, and Ply for Keeps set a 17.2. B++ with an 18.1 and 18.9 coming in. Let's see what AJ does. We know he's a very fast driver in the Alfa Romeo. Coming across the line now with a 15.6, a very strong lap from the Alfa Romeo driver on the mediums as well. Very fast lap.
Especially. So the mediums, I believe the medium to hard might be one of the stronger strategies around the Hungaroring because I know that it is very unforgiving on tires as a driver standpoint. So definitely qualifying on those mediums and getting a time as quick as he did already is definitely going to be very strong and put him in a good spot for the race.
Yeah, so here we have the Racing Point of Awesome coming around in the final sector right now, trying to set a good banker lap. Let's see where the Racing Point lands them. Clipping the last turn very nicely. Going to be a mad dash to the start-finish line. Let's see where he sets. A 16.5, very solid banker lap from Awesome.
Especially since I think he went for a second lap on those tires. And as I said before, tire wear is a big, big problem here.
Yeah, definitely. The tires definitely degrade very fast with the twisty and windy turns of Hungary. Very unforgiving, very punchy like the flavors in their foods, like my favorite goulash. Can't get better than this in the mountains of Hungary. Here we have Estaprada actually trying to finish his lap. The other Racing Point making his way around, going to the double chicane right now. Let's see where he sets a lap. The Racing Point really want to set some good points this race. Try to cement themselves in the constructors' standings. As well as the Williams, who had a very, very disappointing Austria performance. So we see 11 drivers have already set banker laps, but we still have 6 more to go. With AMA Jetty, one of the faster drivers, actually losing the car on the final turn and having to give up on his lap. So here we have Estaprada making his way around. He's in the final turn right now. Let's see where he sets a banker. And then after this, we'll check out Tech Jones, who is the Renault driver, the Renault driver. Did a great job last weekend and actually won the Grand Prix. So he's setting a lap on the mediums as well. That yellow on yellow looks very nice with the Renault. Let's see where he can take us.
As yeah, we go on board with our first race. He was the winner, so definitely very strong performance in Austria, as he is a very, very rapid driver. As you know, he's definitely another one to watch once again, as he kind of shocked all of us with his very, very nice win, fighting it right to the end for Austria. As he actually sets a purple sector 1, I believe I saw before on the timing sheets. As he comes to sector 2 timing line, it's another purple. So he is on an absolute flyer on these harder compounded tires, which will set him up very nicely for the race, as I said before. As he hooks the car in for the penultimate corner, uses all the track on the exit, brings it a nice wide line, but cuts it in nicely. As he comes to the line, beautiful exit, opens up that DRS, and he's going to set a 16-0, which is a very strong lap for those medium tires, as we said before. So he is looking very good for this race if he actually elects to start on those mediums, as I believe he might be going for another lap, as those mediums definitely can stretch 2 fast laps.
You can see he's
As he's
pushing very
losing a bit
hard,
of
yeah,
a
locking
lockup.
up into turn 2. Right now we're going to actually watch Darth. Oh, Darth actually gave up on his lap. I saw that he was on a flying lap trying to set his banker, but something must have
Oh,
happened that
if
prevented
we
him.
go back on board with Tech Jones, he's actually a little over a tenth and a half up on his time. So he is still going a lot quicker. So we could see him light up the timing boards and actually sneak a little higher. But by the time that he's gaining now, it doesn't look like he's going to catch up to P2, but definitely a strong lap if he does complete it without invalidations, as I hope I don't commentator curse him, as he gets a little shaky on the exit, but keeps the car in check, takes a nice line through there once again.
Yeah, you can see
So
that he's
he's
definitely pushing the car to the limit, Tech Jones, and multiple corners he's been locking up, trying to push
Ooh.
the car to the absolute limit, trying to reach everything that he can out of the car. We could actually see that he's blinking right now, which means that he's running very low in ERS. Will he finish the lap, or will he elect to go into the pits? Yes, he does elect to go into the pits, as the lack of ERS, frankly, will give him no time gain and actually lose him time when he's trying to run to the line and set that faster lap. So here we have the P4 driver, the collateral. He just came across the fast left-hander turn up the hill, and he's on his second flying lap right now with 9 minutes left in the session, coming around the double chicane, trying to improve on that 16.2 time, which I believe was set on the soft compounds.
He is catching up the Paradox, though. He could get a little bit of dirty air, as I believe
Oh,
Paradox
and he
is on a
spins it,
lap.
and
And he
collateral
spins.
spins it. Very unfortunate for the Red Bull driver, and it looks like he avoids front wing damage, but that's his tire compound gone, basically. And he's going to have to go back to the pits here.
Exactly said. Yeah, so now that he used those tires and he had a little bit of a spin on them, they're basically unusable because of how far he made it into the lap, as he just looks to avoid all the drivers.
Yeah, so
Doesn't
here
want to
we
cause any incidents.
we have the Ferrari driver of M-Buns, the recently promoted driver from reserve to a full-time driver. We saw him last week, but here he is again, but now in the Ferrari, trying to make his mark as the first race as a full-time driver for NNR. And let's see what he can do as a second lap. He already set one lap of a 16.6, a very solid banker, but he's obviously looking to improve upon this lap. He's coming across the final sector right now, hooked it in very nicely. Let's see what he can do in the final turn, the mad dash of the start-finish. Let's see. Does a very good job to keep the car under control. Doesn't use much of the chicane, but he still makes a mad dash to the finish line and sets a 15.9. Very good improvement for N-Bun in the Ferrari. And here we actually have AMA Jetty just at the pole lap of 15.1. Very, very fast lap from him on medium compound. And it looks like he actually is on his second lap on the medium, so we must have missed that pole time.
I think I slipped right by us, but Jetty, as you know, we know him as a very, very rapid driver, so he is, I'd say, one of the favorites coming into this race, as he had a little bit of an accident in Austria, but it looks like he's put that behind him. And yeah, he had very, very strong qualifying. As he might, I don't even know if he's going to elect to go quicker, because those medium tires are just so much faster than the softs around here.
Yeah, and here we have the Red Bull driver of P13 Gummy Panda. He set a 17.7, definitely looking to improve that lap. You can see AJ had to move out of the way very quickly for him there as he's on his high lap. Oh, and he goes off the track and invalidates. That's going to be very unfortunate for the Red Bull. He will most likely have to elect to go back into the pits and go out for another lap later in the session.
I believe we have B++ now setting his lap. It's actually, I think he had a little bit of a mistake on my timing board. He was 2 seconds down, but he still is in hot lap mode, so maybe just be a little timing glitch on my end.
Yeah, see what he can do. He previously set a 17.9. Definitely a lot of time to improve there. Let's see what he can do as he comes around the final turn of the lap. Let's see where he sets when he crosses the start-finish line. So he actually keeps his time of 17.9. He does not improve. So here we have Plyful keeps, actually. He looks like he's on his hot lap. Kulak moves out of the way. He's going up the fast left-hander up the hill.
Oh, we have Darth sliding his way up into P5 after this is his first lap on track now. That's very strong from him.
Yeah, very good from the Williams driver, especially after a very disappointing performance last week. Here we go back to Ply. Oh, and he actually gets too excited after the double chicane and spins the car a little bit there. That's his lap done. You can see that it's very common today that these drivers are trying to push to the absolute limit. And unfortunately, when doing so, sometimes you get a little bit too excited on the throttle and you actually lose the car. We saw it with the Collateral, now we're seeing with Plyful Keeps, and we actually saw it with Jetty too. One of the fastest drivers on track coming around the final turn. So Hungary is definitely catching out a few familiar names and a few new names today. And here we actually have Tech Jones, the race winner of round 1 Austria, trying to improve his time of P7. I believe he set this time on a medium compound. Correct me if I'm wrong. Oh, and we actually see the Ferrari. Who is that? Who is that Ferrari that just slammed into the board? That was N7. Very unfortunate from him. Oh, and he's going to try to recover it, but that is his lap done. He previously...
Cool-X is on pole.
Beautiful lap from Cool-X, a 14.6. Very, very impressive lap from him, and very unfortunate from the Ferrari driver to hit the barrier like that. And here we see AJ actually just went back into the pits. He set a 15.6, a very solid lap. He's in the top 4 right now. Now we're going to go to TOP Morph. It looks like he's starting his hot lap currently. He's P10 with a 16.6. He's followed very closely by Awesome, who is only 0.04 of a second behind him with a 16.655 compared to a 16.13. So he's going to obviously try to push and improve on his lap there. And here we have Tech Jones. He set a 14.9, very solid lap on the soft compound, so he no longer will be starting on that medium compound tire, which arguably could be an advantage. So very interesting for him to elect to switch to a soft compound and try to start on the softs rather than the mediums. So here we have Paradox in P12. He's going up the uphill right, going towards the double chicane right now. The Mercedes driver is at a 16.7. Going to try to push as much as he can out of the Mercedes car, as we know in real life is greatly technologically advanced compared to the other cars, but let's see how it is in the F1 2020 video game. He's coming through the windy, turny section of the track right now, section 2. Now he's coming towards sector 3, and he's going to try to hook together a very nice lap. Locks up a little bit, trying to get the absolute most out of the car, coming into the second to last turn. Hooks in very nicely. And here we see him approaching the final turn.
His lap is actually invalid.
Very unfortunate for the Mercedes driver.
So maybe he had an early invalidation in the lap, but I believe he might be going for another one, as he does go 0.05 of a second up on his previous time.
That'd be very interesting if he decides to do 2 laps on the softs, because let's say he does actually make it into the top 10. Those softs on a track like this, that's very, very heavy on tire degradation. His softs will be in a very rough state at the start of the race if he does elect to go for another lap. So it'd be very interesting to see. We can actually see that he touched a little bit of the grass there, getting some dirt to kick up. He's going to try to, it looks like he is actually going for another lap on the soft compound. Oh, very interesting from the Mercedes driver here. And here we actually have Awesome. It looks like he might be on a hot lap as well, or he just finished one, as we can see from his ERS levels being a little bit low. Yeah, it looks like he might be giving up on this lap here. The ERS is quite frankly just too low to complete another lap.
As now we have the Collateral coming through on the first turn now.
Oh, and he actually spins it after turn 1.
And he spins.
He must have gotten a little bit too excited.
Commentator's curse.
Yeah, commentator's curse coming in. Very unfortunate from the Collateral.
Apologies for that one.
I heard from Race Controller earlier in the session that the Collateral actually has no traction control for this race. So this is evidently his first time trying to race in an F1 league without traction control, and we could see that the Collateral is struggling a little bit with that no traction control, having spun twice, and he might need to be a little bit more careful on the throttle and even tell the garage to turn his CC up a little bit. And here we have Jetty. He's on his second lap on the medium compound tires, and he's going to be setting a hot lap right now, trying to improve on his already very, very solid medium time of a 15.1. He's attempting to go for pole position on the medium tires. A very interesting move from the driver, but if the pace is there, can definitely improve the race strategy and give him a huge advantage over the other
He's
drivers.
2/10 up through the sector, so we could see him slot in right above Tech Jones.
That'd be an amazing performance from AMA Jetty, as that's exactly what he wants right now. If these drivers are setting 14.9s on the softs and he's setting a 15.1 on the medium, obviously with track evolution, with 1 minute left in the session, he's going to be flying compared to Tech Jones and Coolx. And Coolx and Tech Jones are going to have to retaliate, but their pace might not be the same on the medium, so they're going to have to elect to go into that soft compound. And when they go on that soft compound at the start, AMA Jetty is going to have the ultimate pit strategy, basically, and have a huge preference to really win this race.
Exactly, because we have to remember now, he's done all of his qualifying on the medium tires. He actually goes into the pits.
He likes to go into the pits.
Up on his time. So maybe something went wrong there, or he just doesn't want to push those tires too hard, as he does come back into the pits. But as you said before, he actually retires from the session, so he's happy with his qualifying spot. He doesn't want to go quicker. He wants to just preserve those tires, as he actually has, I think he's done all of his laps on the mediums, so that means he has 3 fresh set of soft tires. So we could see him stretch those mediums all the way out to around lap 22, 23, and then elect to try to push the softs. So we could see a medium soft strategy from Jet, as he is very high up in the order on the harder compound.
And here we have Tech Jones, the P2 driver, setting his final flying lap of the session, trying to push the absolute most out of the car, missing the apex a little bit there. And here he comes into Sector 3, pushing the car to the absolute limit, the Renault-powered engine, trying to thwart the Mercedes-powered Williams. And he gets a little bit squirrely on the exit. He's just trying to get on the throttle as soon as possible, getting the absolute most out of this Renault. And he's going to make a mad dash at the finish line. Let's see where he sits. So he doesn't improve on his time. He still sits at a 14.9. So he will be the provisional B2 driver right now. It looks like Mr. Tafter is actually in the pit, so he won't be setting another lap. But we have N-Buns on his final flying lap of the session right now. Oh, and he actually retires, so he must have not improved. Let's look at Darth. He's in Sector 3 right now, about to come around the final corner. Let's see what he can do here. That's a very nice final turn. He's going to go to the finish line. Let's see where he places. Oh, so he actually goes up to P4, taking out Mr. Tafter's time of 15:40 or 4:41 with his 4:30. So a very solid lap from Darth, going about 100th up on the lap. See any other driver. So we have the collateral.
Jones runs into a lot of traffic. If we want to go on board with him right now, is he has to find his way through, and he actually can't get it done. As he just ran into so much lap traffic of Paradox, and I believe that was, he actually almost made contact with N7 as well. So a little bit unlucky for him on his lap. So it looks like he is going to have that P2 spot secured, unless Top North has something to say on those mediums. He's 2 seconds up on his time, so I don't think it's going to be... Oh, as the collateral misses the pit entry. We're going it a little deep. So he actually doesn't have to go around one more time.
Well, it looks like the collateral has ran out of hot laps here. Very unfortunate from him. It almost looked like maybe his team radio, very similar to the Kimmy situation, told him to box in, and then all of a sudden he got told to stay out. But unlike Kimmy, he kind of cut the pit exit, or the pit entry right there, and thankfully no other driver was coming around the final turn of the lap. Otherwise, a huge collision could have happened.
Exactly. Very fortunate to see that nobody got shaken up by that. But I believe everybody is either in the pits or their lap is done. So as we are about to come to the grid slot shortly, once all these drivers get back into the pits, we'll run through our qualifying order.
Yeah, so we can see that the Williams definitely are going for redemption this week in P1 and P4, setting a 14.2 and a 15.4. Very solid laps from the Williams drivers, trying to make a statement after their disappointing performance in Austria. Coolx in P1 with Darth in P4, 2 very fast drivers. All right, so here we have the starting order for our race. We have Coolx in P1 in the Williams. We have the Renault of Tech Jones P2. We have the Alpha Tauri of AMA Jetty P3. We have Darth the Williams in P4. We have the Renault of Mr. Tafter P5. We have AJ the Alfa Romeo in P6. Then we have N-Buns in the Ferrari P7. Then we have Collateral, Red Bull Racing. Then we have Jimsy in the Haas, McLaren, Mosai in the McLaren. And then after that we have Awesome, more Paradox, that's the Prada, Apply for Keeps, Gummy, B++, and N7, and that will be our starting order of the race here today in Hungary. Very exciting race lineup, and very exciting to see what these drivers can do today.
Exactly. This is lining up to be a very good race, as you know, these drivers, they have been doing a lot of practice.
Yeah, it's definitely
You can see
showing.
in
We could see that the Williams have definitely made a huge improvement in the qualifying position from this week to last week. Those are definitely some people to watch right now with Kulex and Darth and P1 and P4. Very impressive for the Williams drivers. Is there anyone that you're looking out today or for today, Tom?
Well said. Honestly, I think that as we go into this formation lap shortly, that I'm gonna, I think the collateral, even though he does have TCR for his first race with it off, I think that he definitely is a fast driver, and he has a pretty good quality time. I believe he's in the top 10. So especially for his first time, having it all for a race, that's still very strong. And I think it'll, as the track kind of grips up during this race, that he's going to find a lot of luck. He is starting in the P8 slot, but as we start our formation lap, who are your drivers to look out for?
Well, as you can see, I'm very keen on the Williams right now, but I'm also looking out for the Renaults. Tech Jones in P2, who was previously a reserve driver in the last race for the McLaren, he is now starting in the Renault at P2. And we also have Mr. Tafter P5, who is the long-standing Renault driver, and he's been here since the beginning. We also have AJ, who's an incredibly fast driver. We saw him in a very close three-car battle at the end of Austria last week. He's someone to watch out for. Jimsy as well. I remember he was holding the P2 position for a while in Austria. Very, very skilled drivers spread across the grid today for the race start in Austria. You can't really get it more exciting than this. And here we actually have Mosaiden, the McLaren driver, who had a little bit of an unfortunate race with the rain in Austria last week, but here we see him today, ready to go up and go. And P10 in the McLaren, the only McLaren driver on the grid for today. And here we see the pit stop strategy that the game is recommending is saying a one stop from the soft to hards. I believe that will most likely be the most prevalent strategy today that most drivers choose, or like a driver like AMA Jetty, who will be starting on the mediums. He will be doing most likely the mediums to hard strategies, which is very strong around this track. So we see that the drivers are making their way around to the grid right now. We're going to see some bold statements today from multiple drivers. Some very skilled drivers in the top 10 and beyond can definitely make their mark today, starting on the grid. And here we go. We see Kulex lining up in the P1 slot for the first time this season. It's going to be in a very exciting race start coming into the very tight turn 1 of Hungary.
Definitely, as we're going to see, I think, the most overtaking done into turn 1. So hopefully, this track isn't known for the most, overtaking chances,
and here we have the lights actually going out. Here we go, lights out. And away we go at Hungary. Oh, never mind. Never mind. looks like the drivers actually got a little bit of slow reaction time. We get Kulex gets a very good start. Tech Jones
gets him over the line. Kulex actually is tumbling down the order on his race start as Jetty slots into P2, so he's just where he wants to be.
Yeah, we can see Jetty made an amazing overtake on the medium compound tires there into P2. Tech Jones gets an amazing start too. Kulex is falling a little bit down the order, battling his teammate Darth. P3 and P4 into turn 3. They're going side by side right now. One an intense battle. Oh, will they hold it? Oh my gosh, and Kulex and Darth are going side by side. A very intense battle between the two drivers. Kulex is not going to be happy about losing 3 positions in the race start, not even halfway through the lap. We see Jetty actually crawling right next to Tech Jones, going into the double chicane. Will he make the move? No, he backs out a little bit. Oh, and Tech Jones had a little bit of trouble keeping it on the outside, and Jetty is able to slip through on the medium compound tires. Very impressive considering the other drivers are actually on the soft compound. Jetty does an amazing job to slip through. And we can see a very eventful first lap with a lot of position changes. We see AMA Jetty going into P1, Tech Jones to P2, Darth to P3, and Kulex dropping down the order into P4. And we see AJ staying in the same position as P6, chasing down Mr. Tafter, who also is trying to hold off from the Alfa Romeo driver. And
as we actually have the collateral down 10 spots into P18, as I believe he had a little bit of an issue off the start. I'm not sure if there's any contact or he just got on the throttle a little too heavy.
And Tech Jones actually dives down the inside into turn 1, taking back P1 from Jetty only for an instant, and Jetty actually does a little bit of a switchback. They're going to be fighting each other going into turn 2 and 3, and let's see how Jetty fares with the Renault side by side, and he actually makes it stick around in turn 3. What an amazing move. Oh, and the Renault switches back of Tech Jones. What an amazing move from the two drivers, keeping it side by side, keeping it pinned, pedal to the metal, trying to make everything stick in order to keep that #1 position. Jetty is fighting for his life out there on the medium compound tires, trying to make anything work, and he's still keeping the pace with the soft compound.
If you're Jetty right now, you need to get past Tech Jones. You need to get into that clean air, and you just need to pull away because these softs are going to be dying around lap 6, 7 because they were used for one quality set already. So if you're Jetty, as he is getting very, very close to Tech Jones through the second sector.
Oh, we actually see a big battle right now coming into the final sector between Coolx.
Oh, it's Jetty spins!
Oh, Jetty has a spin into the second to last corner. That's very unfortunate for the Alpha Tauri driver, dropping down the orders rapidly that even the race control cannot keep up with it. He's down into P11 now, losing 8 positions after a spin. After such a strong start, the Alpha Tauri driver is just going to be incredibly disappointed with that. But he's gonna have to make an incredible comeback drive.
Oh, the Ferrari of Enbun, sorry to cut you off there, tries to go around the outside of Jimsy as he actually makes a move stick. Very nice, as now his eyes are on Mr. Tafter.
Yeah, that Ferrari is going to be hunting down that Renault. He's going to want to take that position and try to cement the Ferrari in P4. 2 Ferrari-powered cars in P3 and P4 would be if Enbun is able to overtake the Renault in P4. We actually see AJ in P3 only 6/10 off of the Williams, and we actually have a yellow flag in Sector 2 and Sector 3. We could see Morph is actually falling down the order here. I wonder what happened to him. Fortunate for the Mercedes driver, and we actually see Paradox in P12 as well, his teammate. Let's switch on board to Jimsy right now, who is right behind the Ferrari driver of Enbun. 2 Ferrari-powered cars now, the Haas and the Ferrari. Enbun is going to be very defensive here into the final sector. We can see Jimsy is getting a little bit impatient, trying to make a move anywhere that sticks. Enbun is locking up, and he's probably looking in his mirrors.
If you want to hop on board AJ right now, he has DRS coming down the main straight on Coolx, going down to the inside. He has a little bit of a look, but he just wow, he gets really good speed on that apex, and he has a very nice exit with DRS open as Coolx is just going to slot in right behind him. As Coolx actually runs a little bit deep on the gearbox of AJ, but he keeps it very nice, doesn't run too far out wide, and he's going to look to just now try to get him back on this next lap in with the DRS wide open if he could keep it within a second.
Yeah, we could actually see that AJ is on the medium compounds right now, like his buddy AMA Jetty, who unfortunately spun. He's going to have to be the symbol of the medium runners here, as unfortunate for Jetty after making such amazing moves in the first 2 laps. He had a little bit of a spin here, so AJ is going to have to redeem the medium runners and make a statement after an amazing move on Coolx. And here we actually see Jimsy. He's only 1/10 now off of Enbun. Enbun is actually blinking. He ran out of ERS trying to hold off Jimsy, being a little bit aggressive in the defense. Jimsy's going to go down on the inside and makes an amazing move stick on the Ferrari driver. Very confident, very bold from that Haas driver, making it stick. And we can see that Enbun is not very happy about that, trying to maybe take it back, and ends up locking up, having Darth now closer on the gearbox of Enbun. Enbun is falling apart a little bit here, just trying to defend for his life and trying to keep his position. As we know, Jimsy from last week, Jimsy is a very fast driver. So Jimsy's going to be trying to make his way up the order, fighting Mr. Tafter, who is another fast driver. But here we have Darth now, trying to approach Enbun, trying to make a move stick, and we actually have Jetty right behind Mosidon and the McLaren driver. Jetty has incredible pace on the mediums.
Jetty actually gets a really good exit, and he might have looked on the inside into turn 3, as he does. He does a little peek. He keeps his wing clean on the inside of Mosidon. Mosidon actually gives him no room and pushes him off the track. The stewards may want to have a look at that after this race, but as of right now, it's race on. Mosidon wants to keep those elbows out. He does not want Jetty to get past him.
Yeah, Jetty will definitely be unhappy with that, as Mosidon, frankly, did not leave him much room. And we actually see Darth going through the double chicane, trying to make an overtake, gets pushed off track a little bit by Enbun. Not very much room to overtake there. 2 battles happening within 10 meters of each other. Enbun is able to make it stick. What an amazing move from the Ferrari driver, and they keep going. The battle never stops, and they had a little bit of a touch. Oh, and Darth ends up actually staying in front, and we see Poseidon trying to get involved in the action a little bit, going up the inside on the Ferrari, not able to make a move stick, and now Jetty's going to dive in as well, getting pushed a little bit wide. Jetty's going to go down the inside, made an amazing move on the Poseidon, the McLaren driver, and that was a very eventful battle for P6 to P9 right there, Poseidon falling down the order a little bit.
I don't think it's over yet, as Kulix actually goes into the pits lap 5. That is very early for him.
Wow, what an amazing battle to start the race on and lap 6 of 35. We see Darth leading the pack right now in P5. Mbun's following, followed by AMA Jetty and Poseidon.
Jetty actually is going to have the run on it. Nbun maybe, as Nbun's already blinking and it's only lap 6. Jetty has...
Oh, and Jetty makes an amazing move out of turn 3 into turn 4 on that McLaren, or on that Ferrari driver, excuse me. Coming up to the fast left-hander, trying to chase down that Williams in P5 of Darth.
Oh, Zembun runs super wide. He puts a tire into the grass. That actually puts Poseidon side by side with him through the chicane. You don't want to go side by side here, boys. Be careful, as actually Nbun keeps it, but he runs way over that apex, so he might have picked up a warning from the stewards.
And now we actually see Plyfa keeps, after that mistake, being able to catch up to the pack of Poseidon and Nbun. He might try to get involved in the action as well. A very intense battle between these drivers.
If you are playing for keeps on these medium tires, just cracking into the top 10, this is what you want to see between Poseidon and Nbun, because every time they battle, you are getting closer and closer, and you are on the harder compound, so that is good to see, as he's going to slot in above these drivers when they go to pit.
And here we actually...
Nbun elects to pit now. Poseidon staying out one more lap, trying to get the overcut on Nbun.
And here we actually see that AJ is hunting down Tech Jones in P2 right now, only 3/10 off of the leading driver. AJ is on the medium compound with Tech Jones on the soft, so we might see the soft start to fall off a little bit here in pace, and those mediums might start to come alive and give AJ a huge advantage in his attempt to overtake if he chooses to make one soon. We also see Jimsy chasing down Mr. Tafter as well up into the fast left-hander. Two very intense battles in the front 4 positions here of the race.
Beautifully said, Giants, as I believe these mediums are coming to life now on these softs. They are very similar at pace, as these softs are dead and these mediums are still going. So the softs have probably dropped off to the point now where you just want to get off of them because they are having very similar pace. But Tech Jones still is keeping AJ behind. Gap is 2.5 tenths, as I believe he's probably coming in this lap.
And we can actually see Tech Jones locks up coming into Sector 3. AJ's getting inching closer and closer, only 2.5 tenths off of the Renault driver of Tech Jones, essentially just going against his gearbox right now.
Oh, as Tech Jones actually stays out one more lap, as this might prove costly to him, as AJ might get him on the straight as he gets a nice run. He's lining up right to the back of the gearbox.
I can see Tech Jones going straight to the inside line.
He wants to defend as AJ breaks very late. Just tries to hook the car around the outside. As they make a little bit of contact, Tech Jones leaves him just the right amount of room, as he's actually going to come back at him down the inside of turn 3 here. As Tech Jones is holding a beautiful line around the outside, and he holds on as these softs, he's bringing the life out of them. He wants everything out of these softs. He wants to stay ahead before he has to pit, just holding up AJ now, as Mr. Tafter now has a lot of time to catch up, as he is around 2.9 seconds back, but all this battling is just going to inch him closer and closer to AJ.
Oh, and AJ actually spins into the barrier. That's very unfortunate. 2 medium runners now spinning.
He's going to get really hairy as Jimsy now goes around the outside of him and actually holds a beautiful overtake. Went AJ with wing damage. Jimsy holds on with no warnings as AJ now is running out wide as he has an unfortunate spin. He's going to have to come into the box, pit to those hard tires till the end of the race now. As now that puts Mr. Tafter in a beautiful spot. It's going to put him net P1 as Tech Jones pits. He should be pitting this lap because these tires have to be crying to him.
Very, very unfortunate for the Alfa Romeo driver of AJ, who's going to have to pit this lap on the medium compound, which preferably can go much longer. We can see that from P2 to P9, they are all medium runners, with Kulix actually having recently pit onto the mediums. Looks like he's going to be doing a 2-stop, and we actually see that Tech Jones comes into the pits, the soft runner in P1, now going to probably be switching to the hard compound tires. And here we have Jimsy in P2 chasing down the other medium runner of Mr. Tafter, only 7/10 off. He has DRS coming towards turn 2 right now, the double apex of turn 2 and turn 3. Mr. Tafter looks like he's fighting for his life out there. He was attacked by AJ and he was attacked by Jetty. And he was still able to keep on. He's still P1 currently. What amazing battling coming from everyone in the top of the field and across the field today in the opening laps. And we actually have Tech Jones is behind TOP Morph, the Mercedes driver. Tech Jones is on completely fresh softs here, or hards here, excuse me. Morph is blinking right now on the medium compound tire. He's low on ERS. He might not be able to make very much defense on the prior P1 driver here. Morph is going to be looking at the rearview mirrors a little bit nervous, knowing the pace that's in that Renault engine, as well as Awesome and Plyfo Keeps. Everyone above Tech Jones currently is on old medium, so Tech Jones might have that very heavy pace advantage that the hard tires have, or these fresh hard tires have around this track, especially with low ERS of people like TOP Morph.
As you're saying that, Awesome does pick up a time penalty.
Oh, and we actually see that Kulak, the Williams driver on 2-lap old mediums, is actually right on the gearbox of Tech Jones. Tech Jones on the fresh softs and Kulak on pretty fresh medium compounds. We're going to see which tire comes more alive around this track in the early stages. Will Kulak be able to make a move soon on Tech Jones, who was on the harder compound tire, which means a little bit slower lap times around here. Oh, and we actually see that Tech Jones is going to be making a move around the Morph. Does a very nice job of going into T1. Not much scrapping happening there. I'm going to see that Kulak is actually going side by side as well with TOP Morph. TOP Morph losing 2 positions within the span of 2 corners there. Kulak is going to be right on the gearbox of Tech Jones, who's right on the gearbox of Awesome. Very amazing battling coming right here, and Tech Jones might be looking for a move on the outside, but it decides against it. Kulak is coming up right behind Tech Jones. 3-car battle right here. Awesome is struggling a little bit for pace, and she's going to be trying to hold on to Tech Jones, who's riling up behind her. When we see Tech Jones getting very close to the gearbox, Awesome getting a little bit squirrely as they're just trying their best to defend against the faster drivers right now on the faster compound, according to age. Tech Jones right up on them, making them feel a little bit nervous, making them make mistakes. You can see Awesome touching the grass. Tech Jones is going to be going side by side. We get an amazing view from Kulak's onboard. Tech Jones is able to go up the inside, leaving Awesome compromised, and Kulak looks to slip around the outside into this turn. Will he be able to make it stick? And no, Awesome does an amazing job of putting the car there, just enough to hold off the Williams driver on 3-lap old mediums. And Tech Jones is going to be trying to fly for Plyfo Keeps right now, who is only 7/10 ahead of him. Tech Jones having a lot. Oh, we actually have a virtual safety car come out for AJ, who DNF'd. I wonder what happened to him. Very unfortunate for the Alfa Romeo driver, who had a very strong start. And we could see that he actually DNF'd in the final sector. I wonder what happened to him.
As we are under this VSC, all the drivers adhering to the Delta. As we actually have Klinsman following the channel. Thank you so much, Klinsman. As he says Jet is on a charge, and for sure he is. He made up tremendous ground after spinning early on in the stage of this race. As also we have Rimzik rooting for Jimsy, as Jimsy's sitting in a beautiful P2 right now, right on the back of Mr. Tafter as well. He should be about within a second, as I believe this VSC is going to end soon. Hopefully no drivers can pick up drive-throughs, as that would be very, very bad, as it looks like none of the drivers picked up drive-throughs. So that's very, very good on all their parts to keep the Delta, as it could be a little bit, it could catch out if you're not being careful.
And we actually see Kulak off the start. He's on 6-lap, fresher medium tires compared to Awesome. He obviously was the pole sitter of this race. So let's see if he has the pace to actually overtake Awesome into P6 position and fight again with Tech Jones for the front positions after Mr. Tafter, Jimsy, and Jetty all pit. Plyfo Keeps actually is also in P4 right now, 15 seconds down from the pack in the top 3. He's on 10-lap old mediums, and it looks like Kulak has some DRS on Awesome, so he's going to try to make a move into T1, it looks like. Will he be able to make it stick? A little bit late on the brakes, going down the inside, and Kulak makes it stick very easily with not much contest from Awesome. And actually, yeah, it looks like Awesome did not get a good enough exit to contest into turn 3. So Kulak did not have a very hard time making an overtake into P6, and we actually see that Plyfo Keeps actually got overtaken by Tech Jones as well, into, I'm assuming, to T2 or T3. And now he's going to have to hold off from Kulak, the P6 driver, on the 6-lap fresher mediums. And we actually see
as Awesome and Top Morph make contact with each other.
Oh, very unfortunate from the two drivers, and we can see that it was actually so severe.
Darth is coming through.
Ooh, and Darth just slips right through. Very lucky for him.
Actually has full wing damage. He has no wing, as Top Morph is missing end plates, as they had major contact.
Yeah, these two drivers are going to be struggling right now, as Darth has tried.
Kulak is off.
Oh, very unfortunate for the Williams driver. Will he be able to recover it?
VSC.
Very, very lucky for Kulak that the VSC would come out at such a time after the debris between Darth and TOP Morph.
As Kulex is missing an end plate as well, so he's going to have to box it in for those hard tires and go to the end from there. As Kulex gets a drive-through, or Collateral actually, sorry, gets a drive-through for speeding under the VSC. As he sits in P17, that is, as I think he's going to have a tire change
Oh, and we
now.
see that Moseidon
Oh,
actually gets one as
as
well. Very
Oh,
unfortunate.
you never want to see a drive-through. Very unfortunate indeed. Beautifully said, Giants. It's actually, before this VSC was called out, Jimsy was actually catching rapidly on Mr. Tafter as he's feeling the pressure of P1. I believe the gap was about 4 or 5 tenths before we had a bunch of collisions. As actually, Jimsy is making up this gap very quick, as it was 1.4 seconds. Now it's a little under a second. So if he can hold it here, we'll have DRS on these next 2 straights. And he's going to keep it very close and give Tafter, you know, a bit of a challenge.
And we could actually see between the top 3 right now, they're in a little bit of an isolation zone right now, all within 2 seconds of each other, but P4 is 17 seconds down the field, so obviously these top 3 drivers have made a very big gap here. It's Jimsy that's only 9 tenths off of Mr. Tafter. The real question is, will he be able to get DRS, and will Jetty be able to get DRS and be able to involve himself in the mix here? And we can see that Jimsy opens DRS, and Jetty does as well, so Jimsy is going to be rapidly catching onto Mr. Tafter, the P1 driver right now. They're both, all of the top 3 drivers are actually on 13-lap old mediums. So these.
So that is going to actually, sorry to cut you off there, but that's actually going to put Tech Jones in the lead pretty. Actually, it might put Tech Jones in the lead as he's actually 20 seconds back now as he keeps losing time to these 3 drivers in the DRS train. So they are going to be right behind him on fresh or hard tires to the end to see how long they can stretch these mediums. So Tech Jones needs to bring back a little bit of time so he can be comfortably ahead in P1.
Yeah, Jimsy is actually only 4 tenths off of Mr. Tafter, the P1 driver.
We have a yellow flag in Sector 3.
Not sure what driver.
Collateral going slowly.
Oh, very unfortunate for the
Once again,
Collateral.
the Collateral gets a little bit of spin. It doesn't look like he has any wing damage, fortunately, but he does spin, and that is sitting down in P17. He has a tough way to climb, but anything can happen. We could have a safety car, a big collision. You never know.
Yeah, we actually see Jimsy, who's making the gap very short between him and Mr. Tafter. Only between 3 and 4 tenths off. He might be able to make a move in the next DRS straight. And if
I believe he will.
If he opens the door for AMA Jetty, the Alpha Tauri driver, he might be able to make a dive down the inside in turn 2 or turn 3.
Oh, as actually Jimsy gets a beautiful exit as he's getting the run on Mr. Tafter. Mr. Tafter might actually pick up DRS down the second straight from this Red Bull in front of Gummy Panda as Jimsy looks down the inside. He can't make it stick as Mr. Tafter actually doesn't get DRS, so that's going to put him under fire again from Jimsy, who has a little bit of DRS to play with. As he elects to just sit behind him, stay behind, he has a little bit to save maybe. Wants to just make one big push and a little later into the medium stint, as I'm actually not sure the pit window for these mediums, but it has to be coming up shortly, as 14 laps is a lot on this high tire wear circuit.
Yeah, we could actually see that the attempt of a move from Jimsy allows Jetty to close the gap. Jetty is now only 2 tenths from Jimsy, and Jimsy is now 6 tenths from Mr. Tafter. Very close from the top 3 drivers here who are eventually going to have to pit, but it looks like their pace is still very strong on these old medium tires. The real question is, how much will they let it stick before they decide to pit, before they elect to pit? Will they go for an undercut or an overcut on this circuit? That's the real question. We see Jimsy actually pushing the car very hard, touching the grass a little bit.
Exactly, as these medium tires are holding up pretty well. They're only actually, if we look at the lap data from Jetty, he is only about a second off of his previous lap times from the start of the race. So that is really good. It's actually Jimsy dives into the pits. He thinks he has a little more pace. He could come out actually in front of Mr. Tafter when they make their round of pit stops. As these medium tires are slowly starting to wear down. But Jetty does pick up that DRS because the detection point was just before the final corner. As he actually is going to pick it up again as he goes super late on the brakes. So Mr. Tafter is going to have to be driving for his life right now as Jetty is closing in rapidly.
Yeah, Jetty's going to be looking for a move here after having a little bit of an unfortunate spin. In lap 2, I believe, he made an amazing comeback drive. He's now in P2 after 16 laps, and we actually see that Tech Jones overtook Jimsy just coming out of the pits barely behind him. Jimsy is
actually really good for Jimsy.
Yeah, Jimsy's on the fresher hard tires. They're both on the same compound, but Tex Jones' hards are actually 6 laps older than Jimsy's, which is going to be very crucial in the end of the race here, and Jimsy's tires will really start to come alive at a time when Tech Jones' tires are simply degrading.
Exactly said, as those hard tires are going to be really pushed towards the end of this race, as this is high tire wear, as we keep saying. as actually Jetty is getting very close to Mr. Tafter. I wonder if he's going to just elect a box now because he's losing tons of time to Jetty. So we're going to have to see if he's going to make his pit stop now or if Jetty thinks he could get the undercut on Tafter if he pits earlier. As actually Tafter goes into the pit, so Jetty's going to try to probably stick it out one more lap, use all of his DRS. He picks up DRS once again, as he might pick it up even again from this Ferrari of a backmarker, getting blue flagged. As this is going to work out very nicely for him, as he uses all of his, as he's going to use a lot of his overtake on this lap to try to stay now in front of Tafter.
And we actually see that Jimmy, the P4 driver, is right on the gearbox of the Renault and P3. Tech Jones is trying to make the drive of his life to make it up to the top of the field right now. Jimsy is looking like he's going to have a very strong move. He just overtook Darth. Or no, sorry, my bad. Oh, there was almost a collision of someone coming out of the pits. And actually, Jimsy is going to try to go around the outside into turn one of the other Renault driver. Ooh, and Jimsy is going to try to make a good move.
They're going to be side by side into turn three as Tech Jones leaves a beautiful amount of space for Jimsy on the inside.
Oh, and Tech Jones is able to hold it around turn four, going up to the uphill left now. Going to attempt to stick it and just hold Jimsy off as he's chasing back the P1 driver of AMA Jetty. What amazing defending from Tech Jones in order to keep away Jimsy. And Mr. Tafter shortly behind.
Nicely said, Giants, as Tech Jones is just placing that car beautifully. Whenever he has to defend, he leaves the perfect amount of space. He doesn't leave too much room, just gives it about a car length and a quarter width on that inside, just to make sure that Jimsy can't get ahead of him.
You can see Mr. Tafter falling back a little bit down in the timing sheets right now. He's outside of that 1 second, and he's not going to have DRS for this front straight. And we actually see that Jimsy is actually within that 1 second. He's 3/10 away from Tech Jones right now. He's going to be activating that DRS. And might be able to make a move into turn one here.
He has a lot of speed right now, going down the inside. Gets the car stopped beautifully, and he's actually going to make that move. He has DRS once again just to help him stay in front of Tech Jones. He believes he makes the move stick. Very nicely done from Jimsy to move him up into P2, as now Jetty's pushing for his life on these medium tires, trying to get a very, very big overcut, as I believe he will be coming out P5, just by a little bit though, so he's going to be right on the back of these guys on those hard tires, as he'll actually have the freshest to the end by a couple laps on Jimsy if he elects to pit now, which he might.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be very close coming out of the pits for AMA Jetty here. Jimsy is about 19.8 seconds behind, and that pit might be just long enough for him to get involved with the battle from P2 to P4 here. P5.
As we see Jet coming to the pits right now, as Klinsman said that Jet is going to overcut them all, as that is what he tried, as it's going to be very interesting to see where he slots, because he might actually be right next to Mr. Tafter or Tech Jones. It's going to get very, very hairy coming out of this pit lane, as Rimzik is hoping for Jimsy to get this W, as he's driving very comfortably right now.
Yeah, we could actually see the two Renault drivers are right up against each other in DRS range. Mr. Tafter 6/10 away from Tech Jones, who's in P3, 7/10 away from Jimsy, who's in P2.
Oh, here comes Jetty out of the pits. As where is he going to come? As he goes into P2.
Yeah, so
he puts a beautiful overcut on Tech Jones and Mr. Tafter. As wow. That was very close between P1, as he actually almost overcut the whole field. As now Jimsy's going to be under pressure for the rest of this race from the rapid driver of Jetty.
Yeah, so we see from P1 to P4, they're all within like 1.5 seconds of each other, so it's going to be a very close battle fighting for the lead. We actually see a blue flagged car up ahead of Gummy Panda. How will this affect Jimsy in a section that really depends on downforce? Will the dirty air be a big factor? Gummy Panda elects to not move out of the side, and same thing with Awesome. Will he move out of the side for the P1 driver? He does a little bit, goes off the track. We can see it's a little bit of mayhem here between P1 and P4, just trying to catch up with the track. We can see Mr. Tafter getting caught out a lot by that dirty air. Tech Jones still able to keep it in P3. AMA Jetty and Jimsy just slipped by, trying to make their way through the lapped cars. Tech Jones now 8/10 off of Jetty, and Jetty now 7/10 off of Jimsy. So obviously the dirty air really affected him there in that sector. See that Jetty's actually going to get DRS on Jimsy, who unfortunately does not have DRS for himself, so the gap is really going to close here. Jetty does not have any penalties, and we actually see that Jimsy has a 5-second penalty for speeding into the pit lane, trying to get as much time, or trying to save off as much time as possible coming into the pits, but unfortunately costing him with the penalty.
as Mr. Tafter now just fell out of DRS as he was getting a little caught out by the lapped cars. So he's gonna have to try to fight his way back into this 4-car train and hope that it doesn't turn into a 3-car train and they just pull away with the DRS. So he's gonna be pushing right now to try to get back into that DRS into start finish straight.
You can see Jetty dropping back a little bit now, 8.5 tenths off of Jimsy, who's a Haas driver, driving very strong to try to pull away. He's now in sector 3, 6 tenths off. He's going to be feeling that dirty air really heavily here, AMA Jetty will. We actually see that Tech Jones and Mr. Tafter are struggling to keep within DRS range of each other with that dirty air from the Ferrari of N7. N7 not moving out of the way in sector 3. And Tech Jones
Mr. Tafter moves through very nicely.
You know, we can see that Tech Jones is just out of DRS range for AMA Jetty, 1.3 seconds now. And that allows Mr. Tafter to have a nice little look up the inside possibly on Tech Jones if he's able to use a lot of his overtake here and get DRS. But it looks like he's going to be dropping a little bit farther back, as even though Tech Jones did not have the slipstream or the DRS, he still had the slipstream from Jetty. So Mr. Tafter is still about 8 tenths behind here. Very good racing from the front 4 right now that we've been focusing on for the last few couple laps here. Tech Jones now 5 tenths, or sorry, my apologies, Mr. Tafter now 7 tenths off of Tech Jones right now, and Jetty only 7 tenths off of Jimsy in the P1 car of the Haas. Getting very close to these drivers are just fighting for their lives to keep in that DRS range to be able to make a move on the front straight or into turn 2 potentially. We actually see that Gummy Panda makes a little bit of an overtake on N7. M7 had a spin coming up the uphill towards the double chicane. We see that Jetty is now closing the gap, only 4 tenths off of Jimsy, the P1 driver in the Haas. He has a 5-second penalty, so Jetty, Tech Jones, and Mr. Tafter all will move up a position if the race was to end like this. Jimsy is really going to have to make a mad dash here to try to build a gap, build that 5 seconds. Maybe not essentially for the win, but just to the other drivers. Tech Jones is really falling back right now. Now 2 seconds off of Jetty, who's fighting ahead in the DRS of Jimsy right now. And Jimsy's doing a very good job of keeping the pace even without the DRS to keep Jetty behind. Jetty is now 4 tenths off on 3-lap newer hard compound tires, and we could see that these hards are probably going to be coming alive near the end stage of the race, and we could actually see that Jetty still has very strong pace compared to those only 3 laps older tires, now within 3 tenths of Jimsy.
Oh, his Jetty picks up a 3-second.
Oh, very unfortunate for the corner cutting there. The stewards unfortunately had to award him a penalty due to his warnings on track limits, and that's definitely going to affect the finishing order greatly, as Tech Jones is the only one in the top 6 right now, actually, that does not have a time penalty. And here we could actually look at the penalties. Jimsy has a 5 seconds, Jetty has 3, Mr. Tafter has 6, Darth has 3, and Nbun has 3. So it's definitely going to make the top 6 finishing order very close here. You can see that Jetty is really closing the gap now. He might be able to make a move on the DRS straight and to either turn 1 or turn 2 here. We know that this driver has very incredible racecraft when it comes to overtaking, so we can expect to see some amazing moves and some amazing defending from Jimsy, who goes on the inside immediately on the straight. He knows that Jetty's going to have such momentum, and that's no contest from Jimsy, as Jetty just simply has so much momentum coming to turn 1. There was no chance for really Jimsy to defend. He just had to let him by and try to get that next DRS zone, and Jetty actually keeps DRS for the second straight as well due to the area of the detection zone, and there's a little bit of dirty air here from Esteprada. But AMA Jetty and Jimsy do a very good job to keep it tame. And we see that Tech Jones has lost pace a little bit to the top 2 drivers, now 3 seconds away, and Mr. Tafter is with 1.5 seconds now away from Tech Jones. So it's really just a battle between the top 2 now rather than the top 4. It's Jimsy and Jetty right now trying to battle for the winning position with only 12 laps remaining. So anything could really happen here in the Hungaroring, with so many windy and twisty turns and so many areas for opportunity and mistakes to happen. So these drivers have to be on their toes for the last 12 laps and really just make it stick and get that win, get that podium, and get where their team wants them to be. So Tom, who do you think that the strongest drivers were today on track? Who do you think made the best moves, who made the best position changes throughout this race?
As we're coming on 11 to go, I believe that we have a very strong performance from Jetty. I mean, P1 after that spin, which sent him down the order, I believe into P9 or P10. Just the ultimate comeback drive. As it seems like his pace on track right now. If you know we have no safety cars and the race finishes in this order, he will have an extra point for the fastest lap. So we will get the most points you can get in a race weekend. So he's looking very, very strong on track today. What would you say?
So I'm incredibly impressed by Jimsy, the Haas driver, who went from P9 at the start to P2, who is now battling for the winning position right now on the 7-lap old hards compared to Jetty's 4-lap old hards. So Jetty is going to have a slight tire advantage going into the end state of this race, but we can see that Jimsy's still doing a very nice job to keep it behind Jetty, keeping that DRS range, and hopefully allow the DRS to keep him within the gap and give him a very good chance at the race win today. And we can see that Tech Jones, the Austrian GP winner, is really going to want to make that win happen. He's only 3 seconds away from Jimsy, and if he's able to pull out on these 14-lap old hards here and just make a stunning performance, maybe something can happen. But we see that Mr. Tafter is actually behind him, his Renault teammate, on 8-lap old or younger hard tires, so he will maybe be able to make some moves stick. Only 1.5 seconds behind in the final stage of this race. He definitely has a huge tire compound advantage. 8-lap newer hard compound is a very big difference when you come into the final laps of this race. And I can actually see that Jimsy is now only within 0.3 of Jetty. He might be able to make a move in the next lap or so if his pace continues. Very impressive driving from Jetty and Jimsy, the top 2 drivers right now. We've had some amazing battling at the start. We actually see that Jimsy gets a little bit loose there, just trying to fight for his life, fighting the car, fighting Jetty all at the same time. Very intense for the Haas driver right now. He's trying to make his name stick in the history books of NNR. The second race winner, potentially either Jetty, Jimsy, potentially Tech Jones and Mr. Tafter. And then after that, the Williams driver is 21 seconds behind, so there's a huge gap there, even with the pit stops. And we see drivers like B++, Paradox Moside, and Gummy Panda N7, and the Collateral. They're going to have to do a 2-stop race today, potentially, maybe switching on to the soft compound tires after their mediums have run out. And we can see that Jetty and Jimsy and Tech Jones, and frankly, everyone in the top 10 really have elected to go from either mediums hard or to soft hard, and it's just frankly just a quicker strategy in regards to pace and pit stops. It's going to be very interesting to see how these hard runners fare in the final laps of the race. Jimsy trying to keep within DRS, Jetty doing a very good job of holding him off. Jetty has very solid DRS. He has at 46% right now compared to Jimsy, who is actually they're both at very similar levels of ERS, so anything can really happen in this race. It's all up to the drivers.
Exactly, as Tech Jones is losing a little bit of touch, as he's now 4 seconds around back to Jimsy. So if Jimsy could stretch out another 2 seconds, because he does have that 5, then I think that he will be holding on to a P2, which is very strong for the Haas.
Yeah, very strong for the Haas indeed. He's going to make his name stick. He wants to make Gunther very proud. And unfortunate for Tech Jones, the 16-lap old hards are not faring well for him in this race with a much younger hard surrounding him. He's going to get swarmed by those younger compounds, I'm sure, by the end of the race. But Jimsy's still doing a very nice job keeping it within 1 second of AMA Jetty, getting DRS on the straights. He will most likely have DRS here, and Jetty actually elects to move a little bit to the inside line as Jimsy makes up a lot of ground, only within 0.3 again of Jetty. Jetty does a very good job of parking the car on the apex a little bit there and gets a very good exit towards turn 2. We can see that Jimsy is doing a great job keeping up with Jetty, almost actually going near the gearbox of Jetty. Very eager to make a move in the upcoming laps, only 8 laps remaining. And it's really just a battle to the death between these two drivers, fighting with everything inside of them to keep within that P1 spot. Jimsy really wants this win. But currently, due to the penalties, Jetty will win within 2 seconds of Jimsy unless a time penalty happens from either of the drivers again.
Or a safety car.
And we could see that track limits is very crucial on this track, and it's very easy to pick up a 3-second penalty because Plyfo keeps with 18 seconds of penalties, B+ with 9.
Only 3 drivers have none.
Yeah, do we see Tech Jones with no penalties, a very strong drive, and actually if he keeps within this delta right now, he would actually be provisional P2, and he would be 8 tenths off of P1 right now. So it could be a very good finishing order if he's able to just keep similar pace to the drivers in front. We actually see Jimsy is now only 2 tenths off of Jetty, and he might be able to make a move with the DRS coming up the main straight.
Oh, he's catching up rapidly on AMA Jet as he leaves him just the right room on the inside. As Jimsy goes for the switchback, he can't get it to work, but he will have DRS again, and he's all over that gearbox of Jetty. As he pulls it to the outside, tries to switch it back to the inside, can't make it stick.
And Jetty does a very good job defending into turn 1, turn 2, and turn 3 there. Jimsy is unable to make it stick around the outside of Jetty, doing everything in his power.
Flag in sector 2 and 3.
Not sure what happened there.
I'm not sure. I can't seem to find anything. Maybe just a little bit of a... Somebody had a little bit of a moment and might have half spun a little bit, because it looks like all of our drivers are still driving. As that actually might have been Awesome as he dives into the pits.
Very unfortunate for Awesome in P14 right now with 9 seconds of penalty. Not a great race from both racing points. Esther Prada actually in the points right now.
Flag in sector 2 as we have Darth off. Darth, P5.
Oh, very unfortunate for the P5 driver.
He's missing both end plates.
Ooh, he's going to have red wing damage.
As N Bun now tries to slip down the inside into the chicane.
Very nice move from the Ferrari driver to capitalize on the red wing damage from Darth. Up into P5, now 30 seconds away from P4, Mr. Tafter, who is 2 seconds away from Tech Jones, who is 4 seconds away from Jimsy. Jimsy only 3 tenths off of Jetty coming into turn 2 right now. There's a very recurring theme throughout this race. These two drivers are just right up on each other, trying to make the most out of their car and trying to get the best finish possible. They want that 25 points for P1 compared to 18 points for P2. That was 7 points for the Constructors and Drivers' Championship. It's huge for these drivers, especially when they're super skilled like Jimsy and Jetty, who have the contention for the championship. I actually see that Tafter is starting to make up a little bit of ground to Tech Jones, now only within 2 seconds. Tech Jones reducing the gap to Jimsy, actually, now down to 3.6 seconds compared to the 3.9.
As N7 compromises Jetty's line a little bit, as that puts Jimsy now 3 tenths closer to Jetty, as this lap traffic is just looking to be very tricky to get around.
We could actually see that Morph is able to overtake Darth coming out of the pits here, or in the pits rather. And Morph is now into P7, the Mercedes driver with no penalties, behind 23 seconds behind Kulak, the Williams drivers, who actually just picked up a 3-second penalty. The commentator curse affecting him a little bit there. Now the only two drivers remaining.
Sector 1. Oh, Darth! He's off!
Oh, very unfortunate for Darth. It looks like he spun it coming into turn 1, maybe a little bit too eager to get back on the pace.
He's stopped on track still.
Qualified P4 this driver, and we've just seen a very unfortunate race once again for Williams. Both Williams. Kulak's not going to be happy after placing P1 in qualifying and now dropping down the order into P6. Very unfortunate for the Williams driver. We actually have Jimsy only 5 tenths off. Still, Jetty is still managing the same exact gap to Jimsy, and Jimsy is really going to be wanting to make a move here with only 5 laps remaining of the race. Anything can really happen.
Exactly. Now as we come to the closing stages, we are going to see drivers get a little more desperate for those overtakes, as Jimsy's going to be pushing for his life, trying to do anything to get around Jet.
You can see that Jimsy is actually losing a little bit of pace here. Now 7 tenths off of Jetty, who has incredible pace right now on these hard tires. These hards for Jetty is 10 laps old compared to Jimsy's 13 lap old hards, which might be a big factor coming into the last 4 laps of this race. Tech Jones on 20 lap old hards, 6 laps older than Jimsy and 9 laps older than Jetty's.
As we actually Awesome diving into the pits, as she may want to put on those soft tires again, as she actually likes to go on the hard tires. I was going to say she might want to go to the softs and push for her fastest lap to take that away from Jetty, but no, she's on the hard tires till the end now, as that's going to slot her, I believe, P16. Yes, that's going to slot her in P16, as this is not the race, as you said before, that these racing points would have wanted, but we actually see Esther Prada in P10, so at least picking up a point, as I believe this is going to be the racing points not first points, but they are in P7 as we look at the constructors, as the Renaults are actually in the lead of the constructor standings, as right now they're sitting P3 and P4, so they're going to extend that gap if it all said and done at the end of this race, if they finish like this.
So I actually see that Jimsy is actually dropping a little bit of time to Jetty, trying to stay into DRS range. He was at 1.9 tenths away, now reduced the gap to 7 tenths once again. Jetty is just pulling away incredibly on these hard tires, which are a little bit younger. We see Tech Jones only 4.4 seconds away from Jimsy. If he's able to keep that gap within 5 seconds, Tech Jones is net or provisional P2 right now, which would be a very strong finish for the Renault, who just finished P1 previously in Austria. We actually see Mr. Tafter as well in P4. 6 seconds of penalties, which won't affect his finishing order currently. So it looks like if the Mr. Tafter keeps it up, he will be P4 driver for today. The real question is, will Tech Jones be able to manage this gap and keep the gap within 5 seconds to Jimsy? A little bit of a scenario 7 moment here with only 3 laps to remain. We could actually see Tech Jones locking up very heavily going into turn 2 and turn 3, just trying to push the absolute most out of the car to keep up with Jimsy, the very fast Haas driver. Jimsy is on 7 lap younger hard tires, so that pace difference is going to be incredible as well. Jimsy has DRS on Jetty, so that DRS.
Jimsy's catching up very nicely on Jetty now again, as we come on to almost lap 33, as you know, this front kind of train here is very strong, as they're just pulling away with that DRS on Tech Jones. As Tech Jones is actually almost just teetering on that 5 seconds out of Jimsy, so Jimsy may be able to secure a P2 if they could keep pulling away in that DRS.
Yeah, and it looks like Tech Jones actually just slips out of the 5 seconds, bouncing back and forth right now, going through Sector 3. And yeah, it looks like 5.1 tenths now for Tech Jones. Very unfortunate for the Renault driver, but he can definitely bring it back. It's only 1 tenth to make up. Now it's reducing to 5.2 seconds, actually. And it looks like Jimsy's going to make up a lot of ground coming into turn 1. Now only 2 tenths off of Jetty, the Alpha Tauri driver, holding on for his life in the last, what it seems like half the race here. In P1, just trying to make it stick after having a spin in lap 2 and making a great recovery drive on track for the win right now. We have to remember that Jimsy may get the win on track, but he's going to have to pull away 2 seconds if he wants to get the true points for a win here. He's only 0.25 seconds off of Jetty right now. It could be very close coming into the DRS straight, and Tech Jones might be able to capitalize in terms of time gain. If Jetty and Jimsy battle it out here, we actually see a Gummy Panda, the blue flag driver, the lap driver down in P14. He might be giving Jetty some dirty air, and this could definitely benefit Jimsy. And we can see Gummy Panda
picked up a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane all the way down in P17.
We could actually, yeah, we could see very unfortunate amounts of penalties for the collateral. 17 seconds, 12 seconds for Awesome, 12 seconds for Poseidon, 12 seconds for B++. And we see at the top order, there's a little bit less penalties, except for Plyfo keeps with 21 seconds of penalties, but he's still keeping his P8 slot even with all those penalties. We see coming into the last 2 laps of the race, Jimsy only 0.5 seconds away from Jetty right now. And Tech Jones is trying to manage that gap. He's only 5.1 seconds off of Jimsy. If Jetty and Jimsy battle in this final lap, I'm not sure if Jimsy realizes it, but he might be able to, or he might lose.
Flag, Sector 2. Who's that? I think that's the McLaren of Poseidon.
Very unfortunate for Poseidon there.
He does keep the car. He keeps that engine running, and he keeps it going, as I believe he does have one end plate off.
We have a very good battle for the lead coming into the last 2 laps. Jimsy and Jetty here. Jimsy really has to make a move stick if he wants to win, as he will have to pull away 2 seconds as well.
And he does have a lot of energy looking at that dashboard of his wheel. So he has a lot to pull away with, as I believe now they're both just saving behind each other, and Jimsy's going to try to make a final lap push as we have yellow flag in Sector 2. I believe that might have been the Williams of Darth. Maybe just getting a little bit sideways off of there as well. It's actually Jimsy has that same gap to Jet as he did on the lap previous down this front straight. It looks like he just can't make up enough ground as Poseidon retires.
Yeah, very unfortunate for the McLaren driver. He didn't have a great race last week in Austria. I believe he DNF'd as well. Very unfortunate to see him retire in the last lap of the race. And here we have Jimsy only 7.5 tenths away from Jetty. Gonna have to make a move stick. Jetty actually doing a very nice job to pull away, coming to the fast left-hander. Almost building the gap to 1 second. Tech Jones dropped down a little bit. Looks like his hopes of getting a P2 finishing position is waning. He's now 6 seconds back. If Jimsy wants to make it stick, he's going to have to make it stick soon. He's not going to have the opportunity to make a move into turn 1 anymore, as this is the last lap. And we actually see the collateral spinning onto track. Very unfortunate. TOP Morph giving Jimsy some very heavy, dirty air here. Jimsy is now 1.2 seconds off of Jetty. Jetty looks like he will be the race winner here at Hungary if he's able to make it stick for these last few corners. Hopefully there's no commentator cursing that happens here in the final 2 corners of Hungary. We see Jimsy had an amazing attempt to battle Jetty for P1, but unfortunately he wasn't able to make it stick. But we saw some amazing driver from both drivers. We actually see Jetty blinking coming across the line.
And he sets the fastest lap on the last lap on the hard compound of tires.
Yeah, you can see that Jetty definitely used a lot of ERS there to build a huge gap to Jimsy. Unfortunate for Jimsy, who did such a great job to stick behind Jetty throughout this race. An amazing battle from the top 4. And we saw some amazing moves happen today and some very exciting racing. I thought this was an incredible race, some incredible racing as well.
As actually the Renaults, P3 and P4, that is going to be really good for their constructors' standings, as they are, first place of the constructors, and then they're only going to keep growing from there, as they had a very nice performance. As Jetty, I believe, picks up his first win on the second race of Season 1.
Yeah, this is very fortunate for the AlphaTauri driver, as last race he unfortunately DNF'd in the rain of Austria. We see AMA Jetty, the second race winner of NNR, with the first being Tech Jones. Very strong performance from Renault.
Driver of the day.
Yeah, and Jimsy, the driver of the day, very well deserved. Very amazing drive from Jimsy to stick it behind Jetty throughout so many laps. And here we have the podium.
The champagne celebration. These drivers deserve it after such an exciting race. But guys in the chat, stick around. We do have driver interviews coming just after we go over this finishing order, as they're spraying that champagne. What a race we had tonight at the Hungaroring.
What a race indeed. I feel my throat actually getting a little bit dry after all the action that was happening tonight on track.
As we look at our finishing order, we have Jetty taking the P1 spot, Jimsy close second, Tech Jones to round out your top 3, Mr. Tafter. Then we have Nbum P5, Coolx P6, Top More P7, Darth P8, P9, Ply for Keeps. 10th, Esta Prada, and just outside the top 10, missing out on points, is Paradox, B++, Gummy Panda, N7, Awesome, Poseidon, Collateral, and we did have our 1 DNF of AJ to round out the race. As our interviews are going to be coming on shortly, as I said before, very, very nice races. We have a Canadian P1 of AMA Jetty in that AlphaTauri. After that race in Austria where he had an unlucky spin on those tricky conditions, this is very nice to see, as he had the pace today, but Jimsy really pushed him to the end there.
Yeah, very amazing drive from the Haas driver of Jimsy there. Able to keep it in P2 after an intense battle with Jetty in the final half of the race, it felt like. It was very amazing driving from the 2 drivers, and very amazing from Jetty to be able to manage the gap even with DRS for so long. And here we'll have some interviews here between the drivers. I'll be able to pick into their mind and see what truly happened throughout that race. And so here we'll get Coolax, we'll get Jetty, and we'll get Mr. Tafter, Tech Jones, and Jimsy's to hop in the interview, or hop in VC2 to get dragged in the interview. Very impressive driving from all these drivers at the top of the field, and very impressive across the field today. That was truly an incredible race. And here we'll enter the interview room and pick into the mind of these drivers here. Alright, so here we are with Coolax and Jetty. Coolax, you were the pole sitter of today's race. Would you give us a rundown of what happened to that race start? We saw that you lost multiple positions, dropping down to P4.
Yeah, well, I just recently switched to no traction control, so the starts are still a struggle for me. Yeah, that's about it. And then right after I pitted my first time, I crashed into the wall, broke my wing. That messed up my race.
Yeah, very unfortunate for Williams again today. We thought that we're going to see a redemption arc with you in P1 and Darth in P4, but very unfortunately, we saw again the Williams travesty from Austria last week again. But moving on to Tech Jones, we saw a very good managed drive from you in the Renault. We saw that you were doing a very good job keeping up with your teammate, Mr. Tafter, and you two were having some battles throughout the race. Was there any bad blood going on there, or was it all good fun between you two?
I honestly don't even remember battling Mr. Tafter. I think what stands out was the battle with AJ and the battle with I think Jetty. Man, that was crazy. That's got my that was insane.
Yeah, it was definitely an incredible battle at the first opening, like 5 to 6 laps there. Some very good switchbacks happening into turn 1 and turn 2. Turn 3 as well. It was very intense racing, and we saw Jetty able to manage the gap. How are you feeling within that latter half of the race where you're just trying to hold off Jimsy's just attacking you throughout the whole entire race as you're attempting to build a gap to P3 and P4 there? How did you feel?
Oh, man, I was just trying to battle for my life because I knew once I let him through, he was going to be gone. So, uh, yep, pretty much.
Yeah, it was definitely an incredible drive from you, Tech Jones, an incredible drive from your teammate, Mr. Tafter there. All just trying to manage the gap, and you guys had a P3 and P4 finish very strong from the Renaults. And Tom Hawk, would you like to ask any of these drivers here any questions?
As of now, the Renaults are the constructor team to beat. So you guys are holding it very well. It's actually we have Jimsy. Hello, Jimsy. What a race from you today. Kind of walk us through. What were you thinking on those final couple of laps?
Yeah, I kind of knew quick there that the win was thrown away from the speeding. So I just figured I'd let Jetty go, and then I'd get towed and pull a 5-second gap to Tech Jones in third, which ended up working out. So I ended up maximizing the situation.
Yeah, definitely an incredible drive from you, Jimsy, as well as Mr. Tafter. We saw you doing a good job to keep up with your teammate Tech Jones and Jimsy, but unfortunately falling back a little bit near the end of the race. How are you doing managing your pace at the and just managing your race at the start there, where all drivers were really getting swarmed from all angles, fending for their life? How are you feeling throughout that race?
To be honest, I was feeling pretty on edge. I took, I don't know when I took that first 3-second penalty, but it was far too early in the race, so it definitely kind of reeled me back in there. So I was kind of trying to keep it clean for the rest of the race. Obviously, I got that extra 3 second. And yeah, it was a bitch trying to keep up with Tech Jones for sure. At that point, I was just making sure I kept it clean and didn't spin out or anything as the hards were starting to wear off. So.
Yeah, definitely some amazing constructors points from you for you two. P3 and P4 finish very strong for the Renault, leading the constructors championship by a large margin. But here we have Jetty, the Alpha Tauri driver, now the winner for the second round of NNR. How did you feel managing that gap to Jimsy and just trying to hold him off for so many laps there at the end?
All I gotta say is he is fast. He forced me into a couple mistakes that he could have capitalized on, but I think he was more focused on, like he said, building that gap up behind him. But yeah, that was a fun race.
Yeah, definitely very fun to watch and commentate as well. A lot of on-track action going on, especially within the opening laps of the race. Super intense battle from the four at the top and Kulex as well, who unfortunately dropped down the order after a spin. And here we have Awesome. Would you like to tell us any details that happened throughout your race or any highlights that you had?
In details, yes. Highlights, no. Everything was a low light, to be honest. Had to pit like 4 to 5 times because Wayne decided to be a bitch. And yeah, that's about it. I had to pit like 4 to 5 times, then caused a collision with Morph.
Yeah, very unfortunate for the Racing Point today. They did not get the finish that they'd like to see, but there's still 8 more rounds left in the season, so they could definitely bring it back. Tom Hawk, do you have any more questions that you'd like to ask these drivers that are sitting in front of us today?
As I believe we now have N7 into the interview room. So N7, not the race you would have wanted to see, but kind of just walk us through what happened. Did you have any close battles in that start? And yeah, how'd it go for you?
I definitely could have raced better. I'm not very familiar with this track, and I think I had an altercation with Paradox right after the smaller chicane, and we'll have to sort that out. But it was definitely close at some points. You know, I did get blue flagged quite a bit, but I think I had a good race. Me and Awesome Yeet were competing for the the back of the grid. That was a pretty decent fight.
Yeah, so very amazing drive from
Yeah.
all you guys here in the incident room today, or in the interview room today, excuse me. I want to congratulate you all for having such amazing racing throughout that, especially you, Jimsy, and Jetty, just holding off on each other in the final laps of the race, and you, Tech Jones, and Mr. Tafter, just trying to fight for that position and hold yourself in P3 and P4, giving yourself very good points finishes in the constructors standing. So yeah, very great race from everyone here, and I just want to congratulate them on a great second round. So, Tomahawk, if you don't have any more questions, I believe that will be the end of our second round, Hungary.
No, yeah, all of my questions were answered. Once again, as Giant said before, nice race, guys. And I'm very excited for round 3, where we are going to be at Russia.
Yep, and that will be it from us this week, and we hope to see you next week here again at this time next Thursday for Russia, round 3 of NNR. And have a nice night, everyone.